So, The Winter King is a very good book, based loosely on the Arthurian legend. And yes, dear viewer, we're talking about another Arthurian adaptation. It was written by the great Bernard Cornwell, a veritable living legend among writers of historical fiction and fantasy. It's an impressive book, though, in my opinion, it is far from the works of Mary Stuart or even the movie Excalibur in terms of its treatment of the source material. I've always had a great respect for Bernard Cornwell as an author, and I absolutely adore his works. I've no doubt in my mind he's a much better author than I'll ever be, and yet The Winter King is. I wanted to love it. I really did. And instead, I just think it's all right. I think it's good. And I know that's basically sacrilege, but really I liked it. I just didn't fall in love with it in the same way I did with Mary Stuart's Merlin trilogy and again Excalibur. The Winter King itself, it's narrated by Durfel, I think his name is, this kind of sad old Welsh monk living in a horrible little monastery with an abusive abbot, I think he is, in charge of the place. And Durfel likes to sit around and reminisce about the good old days when everyone was pagan and crazy, and when he served in King Arthur's court. Yeah, King Arthur. The point, I think, is that it's sort of meant to be a commentary on the Arthurian legend itself, right? A framing device which allows Durfel to tell us the supposed truth of things. Uh, and Bernard Cornwell is a freaking historian. He can probably tell you where half your ancestors were 800 years ago and what type of food they ate and what they did for fun. He's a genius, and it shows when he launches into like this nigh incomprehensible string of old Welshy names and kingdoms and titles. Like the one of the evil guys is called I think his name is King Gundulus of Siluria, and, and that was a real place, and he probably took the name from some important historical figure because that's how deep Cornwell goes into the history, the actual history of things. And we've got the whole complicated mess with King Uther Pendragon and his bastard son. Yes, his bastard son, Arthur. They make a point of that in this. And Uther's grandson, Mordred, which is a whole thing. And obviously, Cornwell must have some historical precedent for making these decisions. I have not done nearly as much research as I'm sure he did on the subject, so I'm not going to pass too much judgment on such changes. But Mordred is not the son of Morgan le Fay or Morgause, for that matter, and he is not Arthur's son, born of incest either. He's his nephew and a little baby in this book. He is the Winter King, born in winter and going to inherit Uther's realm. It's, yeah, as I said, it's a whole thing. And in this book, he's of relatively little consequence. Merlin, by the way, is a druid and a powerful lord in King Uther's court. He's also a right evil bastard, willing to manipulate anyone and everyone to get what he wants. Compared to some of the other baddies in this book, uh, he comes across as a saint. In all honesty, there's some horrible people in this, uh, but Durfel, he grew up in Merlin's council, in Merlin's court, and he grew up alongside Nimue and a whole cast of kooky characters, all of them very eccentric and dramatic, and in that truly George R. R. Martin fashion. Everyone stands out. You could have a whole book dedicated to just one of these characters, the Druid and the Dwarf, or Pellinor the Mad, or poor Nimue, who just, my God, she gets crapped on in this book an awful lot, and that is a shame. Some of the best scenes in the book do revolve around Nimue and Merlin, and like Arthur is a presence. He's a very cool, very fascinating character. Uh, he's also surprisingly not in it a lot, uh, which is sort of a trend with Arthurian adaptations. You might have noticed. Uh, but there is a sense of magic in this world that Cornwell has adapted, where you don't know what's quite real and what isn't. If there isn't a historical precedent for it, Cornwell is more than happy to make one up for the benefit of good fiction. The ghost fence of painted skulls, the folklore, the charms. It all feels very realistic, exactly what people would think about magic and how they'd feel and interpret things. It's all very fascinating, and I think one of the better scenes in the book is when Nimue walks out with a bat on her head, and she's wearing a mask of human skin, and she's casting spells and making everyone hightail it out of just fear of not wanting to be cursed or stricken ill or whatever. But in spite of all these really awesome things that happen in the book, it's really sad, actually. The book is really depressing. And there's a lot of atrocities that get committed, and it's not even like A Song of Ice and Fire, where there are moments of levity that break up the just horrible things that happen. There is no character nearly as charming or quick-witted as, say, Tyrion Lannister, let alone even a like lovable goofball like Samwell Tarly. No, there's just everyone is very serious and cold, and there's a lot of bad things that happen and a lot of injustice, which I don't think is an entirely accurate representation of the Dark Ages. Much like today, I think there would be a lot of light with the dark. Um, and so yeah, it's depressing, and in a way that, and I cannot stress this enough once more, a way that A Song of Ice and Fire is not. Westeros, famously one of the most bleak settings ever, I find it a bit more pleasant than the world of the Winter King. Uh, but as fiction, it is definitely of high quality, and I just think Cornwell got a bit too carried away with his idea of the Dark Ages and his commitment to, I guess, putting his own spin on the Arthurian myth. Like, it did detract from my enjoyment. Uh, I like the legends to be exactly that, legendary, mythical, and incredible, and somewhat fanciful, like Excalibur. But The Winter King does remain. It remains a very good story, and it has inspired me and my writing in 100 different ways. The way I treat magic, most notably. But I guess the most important thing I might have learned from it is that if you don't have to like something just because it's theoretically in your wheelhouse. It's okay if something doesn't rub you the right way. And I'm sure for some people, The Winter King is their favorite book. And that's okay too, and a perfectly respectable decision. But it's not for me, personally. So, yeah, that's about all I wanted to say about that. Like and subscribe if you want to hear more about what I like and dislike. Hit the bell icon to always know when I upload more videos. Yeah, there will be more on the way soon. Bye.